Welcome back to Staff Meeting. In this session, we want to deal with the pastor and his possessions, his pay, and his pension, so to speak. That is your relationship with material things, your possessions. First of all, as it relates to your possessions, there's nothing inherently wrong with possessing things. The real issue comes when those things begin to possess us. And that's a very dangerous thing to have happen to anybody, particularly someone in the pastorate. So I want to encourage you in the relationship of your possessions to be very cautious. Not that you possess things, but that you don't allow those things to begin to possess you. Everything is really relative in life. No matter how much you may have, somebody else has more. No matter how little you may have, somebody else has less. So everything is really relative. And there's a sense in which money really does talk. It talks. In fact, 1/3, as you know, of the parables that Jesus taught have to do with you and your possessions and the right or wrong use of the possessions that God has given you. In fact, I mentioned in one of my books that if I were asked to write your biography, right now, and I was collecting things. I'm writing a biography right now on a couple of great preachers of the 20th century, George W. Truett and J. Frank Norris. But if I were to ask to write your biography and could have only one thing to write your biography, what do you think I might choose? You say, oh, well, you'd want to see my Bible. That's what you'd want because it has all my notes in it, my sermon notes, my prayers, my devotional thoughts. Or somebody else say, no, you'd want to see my prayer journal. Because there you'd see where my heart was, where I was praying for people and how I was praying for people. But somebody else says, no, I'd want to give to you my diary. And in it every day you'd see what I did and what I was thinking. And then you could write my biography by that. But I wouldn't ask for any of those things. If I could only have one thing to write your biography, you know what I'd want? I'd say, let me have your checkbook. Let me see what your canceled checks say about what you really think in life are important. Because money talks. And it's true that what Jesus said when he said, where your treasure is, that's where your heart will be also. And if I only had one thing to write your biography, I'd want to see your canceled checks. Because they would speak volumes about what was really important in your life. Your possessions are so vitally important. Recently, I was in a pastor's conference down in Austin, and we had a luncheon for several retired pastors who were there. And one great gentleman came up to me and he said, preacher, let me tell you what I started doing decades ago. I gave 1/10 of my income every 2 weeks when I was paid, the first to the Lord. Then I put 1/10 of it in Guidestone, in my 403B retirement account. And then I put 1/10 of it I gave to me and put it in a private savings account. He said, for 40 years, every paycheck I've done that. 1/10 to the Lord, 1/10 to my retirement, 1/10 to my savings, and lived on that 70% and never knew any difference, he said. Possessions are important. It's really important in 3 ways about our possessions. First of all, how we get them. Secondly, how we guard them. And thirdly, how we give them. First of all, if you think about it, you and your possessions, it's important how you get it. How you get your possessions. Take real care here. Many times in the church, people want to give you all kinds of gifts. Some of those gifts come with a lot of strings attached. Be very careful in how you get it. There are other times everybody's wanting to have you in a business deal so they can say to somebody else he's there so they can create. Be very careful, be very cautious of people who try to put you in business deals in the church. Possessions are important, but I want to tell you what's important is how you get it. Make sure you get it in the right way. Secondly, it's important how you guard it. Hoarded wealth will not help anybody along the way. I know folks in their retirement accounts that every day at the end of the day they go see what the stock market did, and then they go into their account and they see it, and when the stock market is raging they see their account growing and growing and growing and growing, and every day, even though they've got a lot more added to it, they say, oh, I wish I had just a little bit more. How you guard it is important. Guarded wealth never extends the gospel never helps anybody. Be careful how you guard it. It's important to save, but it's also important to be a steward. How you get it, how you guard it, how you give it is important. Giving it into the Lord, unto the Lord, and having a plan about how you're going to use this to do that. You know, as we talk about possessions, one of the things that's paralyzing so many today, particularly these last two generations who are out there in ministry today, it's debt. These last two generations have been brought up in a society that's taught them immediate gratification. If they want popcorn, they don't have to get a skillet and put oil in it and kernels of corn and shake it until their elbow's sore. They just get a sack, throw it in the microwave, and 30 seconds later, they've got popcorn. It's immediate, and they've got gratification. You know, if they want information, they don't have to go find an Encyclopedia Britannica like my generation did. They just Google it, and within a few seconds, they've got information on any subject in the world, more than they could ever consume. It's right there immediate. They've lived in a world of immediate gratification, and consequently, they've got those credit cards. A lot of them need to have plastic surgery and cut those cards up because they've got these credit cards, and it's so easy to satisfy that immediate need of gratification just by putting something else. And credit card debt has paralyzed a couple of generations of ministers. You want to get out of debt. It's not that we talk about it in the Pastor's Guide to Leading and Living in our chapter on possessions. But first of all, if you want to get out of debt, admit it. Admit that you've not been doing right, that you've been spending more than you've been taking in. Admit it. Then secondly, stop it. And then thirdly, be honest with your creditors. Go to them and say, look, I want to find a way to get out of this. I want to help. Most of them will help you. Get some wise counsel wherever you're going. Get wise counsel about how to do that so that you can consolidate that and then get a plan to pay it off and to get out of debt. It's vitally important. But not only in this session do I want to talk about your possessions. Let me say a word about the pastor and his pay. This is a very important subject for any pastor. You know, truth of the matter is, I don't know of a pastor who makes too much. I know a whole lot of guys that are worthy of more than they're receiving right now. That's why Guidestone wants to advocate, and that's why we do advocate for pastors and churches of all size at all times. And you can learn more about that by going to our website. But you know, 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 14 says that those who preach the gospel should live by the gospel. Every deacon, every finance meeting, every personnel committee ought to know that verse, that those who preach the gospel, that they're to live by the gospel. The church is to support them. Paul talked about this in Galatians 6 when he said, let him who is taught the Scripture share all things with that one who teaches it. And what about what Paul said to Timothy in 1 Timothy 5 when he said, those who labor in the word and in doctrine are worthy of double honor. Here at Guidestone, we want to advocate for those of you as it relates to your pay. That's why we've got so many resources available to do that, to help the people in your church see what comparable churches are doing for their pastors and challenge them to, for example, take all your benefits out of that. Don't just give you a lump sum of your pay where you have to pay taxes on all that. We can show how a pastor that's making only $40,000 out there somewhere, but who's just given a lump sum, has to make his insurance payments and everything else out of that, just by the church restructuring it where they take the benefits out of his salary, could put $2,000 or $3,000 extra in his pocket every year, not even by giving him a raise, simply by restructuring the way they do the salary package so to save him on tax money. So we have all ways of advocating for you. You can find it on guidestone.org. And then finally, I want to talk about the pastor and what people call the pension or your retirement. Solomon said in Proverbs 6:6, go to the ant, you sluggard, and be wise, and consider her ways, because she stores up food in the summer, so that when winter comes, she'll have a harvest. You know, if that's good advice for an ant, how much better advice is that for those of us who labor in the Word and in doctrine, who preach the gospel of Jesus Christ? We used to talk about retirement being a three-legged stool. And when I say retirement, you know, we're never to retire from ministry. What we're trying to get people to do is get to that place of vocational retirement when they leave the church, that they'll have enough financial security that they're going to live 10 or 20 years extra. Some of you are. And if you can get to that place of financial security in your declining years, you can volunteer to minister all over the world. That's what we're trying to get people to do, trying to advocate to people. We used to talk about retirement being a three-legged stool, where one of those legs was your own personal retirement account. That would be the 403B that you have here at Guidestone. Another one of those legs would be Social Security. Unfortunately, there's some pastors who've opted out of Social Security. In my opinion, one of the most dangerous things you could ever do. And many do it with the intentions of taking that money back and getting it in cash they would have been putting in there and then putting it in disability programs or retirement programs or life programs, but very few have the discipline to do that. Many I'm talking to did it and haven't put a dime back of that. I hear it all the time. That leg is broken on a lot of stools. And then there's one other leg on the stool, and that's personal savings. 15 years ago, the average American family saved 8% of their income every year. This last year, they were in the minus territory. The average American family didn't save a dime. They spent more than they made. That stool is broken. It's a critical time in retirement. And that three-legged stool is not there for a lot of people anymore. It makes it important in retirement to go to the ant and consider her ways. And in retirement planning, it's like running a marathon. If you've ever run a marathon, if you've ever watched one, there are 4 important stages in running a marathon. First of all, you have to have a good start. You get behind in a marathon, there are hundreds or sometimes thousands of people, and you get behind that group, you expend so much energy unnecessarily trying to get through the crowd and run around the crowd. You need to have a good start. Get out in front quick as you can in a marathon. Then you set the pace, and for miles, the majority of that marathon, you just set that pace and you run that pace. And then there's the third stage, that they call it the kick, the second wind. You get near the end and you find that second wind, you find that kick, and you speed it up and you run a little bit harder. And then comes the last stage. That's when you can see the tape, you can see the finish line, and you sprint toward that finish line. Those are the 4 stages of marathon. Do you know those are exactly the 4 stages that you ought to be using in trying to get to that place of vocational retirement with some dignity and financial security? You got to get a good start. That's why you got to get started young. There's a thing called compound interest. That's the most important thing in getting you to that place of financial security. So you got to get a good start. Then you got to set your pace. Then you get near the finish line, you get up there around 50, the kids are gone, you don't have any more college tuitions, and you got a little more expendable money than you've ever had. And so instead of paying tax on it and taking it, you maximize your retirement account, your 403B account, and you save money on tax there. And later you save money on tax when you get it out as a housing allowance. And so you maximize that 403B for tax savings and you pour it into there in that kick, in that second wind. And then you get near the end, you see the finish line. That's where you sprint. That's where you maximize everything you possibly can for tax savings to get to that place of that finish line with some financial security. Well, you say, I'm not young anymore and I hadn't got, it doesn't matter how old you are. The important thing is to get started now. And to get a good start right now. And that's why we're here to help you at Guidestone. You can call our 800 number, or you can reach us at guidestone.org. We're here to be Christ's hand extended to you. We exist to serve those who serve the Lord. And we want to do it with integrity and excellence. And we want to be your partner along the way of life. That's why the vision statement here at Guidestone says we exist to honor the Lord by being a lifelong partner with our participants in enhancing their financial security. Your possessions are vital to you. They'll make you or break you in the way you get them or guard them or give them. Let us advocate for you and your pay with your church, and let us challenge you to be a good steward, to go to the ant and be wise, is our prayer for you today in your stewardship. God bless you. Have a great day.